Hello, welcome back to From Soft Serve, where today we're in Dark Souls 3. I know, shocker, surprise. I got a hyperfixation like 2 or 3 days ago to start a new DS3 mod completely from scratch. I think that's what they call it. And because I've done a few DS3 mods, but never finished them, and the full time I've been waiting for DS3 lighting engine, right? To really make like a full-on DS3 mod. But I ended up changing my mind on that, and I started this mod called Shadows of the First Flame, or at least that's what I'm calling it, that converts DS3 over to dynamic lighting, which is what I've done in the Bloodborne mod as well, and the DS1 mod and DS2 mod. That's kind of my thing. And you'll see the dynamic shadows here from the trees and everything, the entire world, every leaf, every blade of grass. So there is that shadow mod that's been out for DS3 for quite a while. My shadow changes just enable a lot more shadows. Beyond that, of course, I've shoved most things within view into the planar reflections. So the water reflections we see here is part of the planar reflections, and I basically boost that throughout the game in any area that would benefit from it. And then there's massive G-param changes. Don't worry about that building off in the distance. I screwed that building up. That affects exposure, alternate color grading, everything I've done in my Bloodborne mod, basically, because modding DS3 and modding Bloodborne is very similar in terms of their visual config file setup and folder structure. And so this is my version of Firelink Shrine, and right now the mod is up until a part of Irithyll, which is pretty good, I think. I've fixed most of the issues I've had with modding DS3 in the past. I should mention by this point, at least so I don't forget, this is not with any lighting engine stuff. That is for later. Basically, any of my work here will just look better once the full DS3 lighting engine comes out, and then I can start working on like upscaling the actual albedo textures. Here I've just done reflectance map edits and light map edits. But the shininess and normal maps are untouched, and so that will be for later. But I've done everything that I can through DS3's actual rendering engine itself. Plus, I have disabled the through the menus, which is nice in DS3 versus like Bloodborne. In DS3, you can just go in and say, I don't want depth of field, SSAO, or anti-aliasing. And the reason why is because I'm doing that through Reshade. And basically, I just find them to be massively, improved over what DS3's base implementation of that is. So I'm sure you can tell this is a warmer Firelink Shrine, for sure. I'm not going to make every map warmer, but I do sort of want to, you can see there's a little bit of saturation, a little bit of contrast. Because of course DS3 by default is lacking in that intentionally, and so I do generally the color tone. My preference is for a warmer color tone, where FromSoft generally prefers a cold color profile. That's just always been their preference, and so I'm not going to undo that on every map, but my goal is to make each area maybe a little bit more distinct, just a bit. So if anyone is looking for like the most authentic Dark Souls 3 mod, well, this mod's obviously not that. But I think the dynamic lighting actually looks really good. A lot of it is the light map edits, which the light map edits are basically what I discovered in Bloodborne, where you can turn off the baked shadows, essentially, but keep the rest of the light map. So if they had baked any sort of indirect illumination, any AO or any of that, it will still be present. Now the tombstones here do flicker on the shadows. That's been a known issue forever. It's something to do with those meshes, but it's not super noticeable, I don't think. But yeah, you can definitely see a giant clarity boost whenever you turn off the in-game SSAO and anti-aliasing. Those two things are a massive drag on image quality for DS3. And the other thing that, of course, is the main reason for converting over to dynamic lighting is the fact that the player character is now reflected in the lighting itself by, like, you know, when there's an actual, because things are actually casting shadows now, like real shadows, not the pasted on baked ones. You can actually walk into shadows and have them reflect on your character and darken your character only where the shadows are actually hitting your character. It's a really stupid way of describing it, but also I broke the light shafts in this area. Don't know how. I'll be able to fix that at some point. I did something to them, but in the config files I have them turned on and configured, but for some reason they just turned off here. So I figured out how to enable light shafts on other maps that didn't have them being used, so we'll go test that out in some other areas, like Undead Settlement. I think looks really good with light shafts. So here's my Firelink Shrine. Once again, it's less blue. I have de-blued it to a degree. I also turned the point light up here into a shadow casting one, so you get kind of a nice little shadow effect, even though it's not exactly realistic. Don't worry about the light leak here. I will fix that. That's actually from the dynamic shadows coming through. Whole thing. Gotta enable backface culling on some meshes to stop that. But in here we have more things put into the planar reflections for the water. I think it looks really, really excellent, actually. Another big feature of this mod, or, well, I shouldn't say feature, but a difference from my earlier mod work, is I have not removed nearly as many, or many at all, point lights that I normally, in my previous DS3 mod efforts, I had removed a lot of the blue, like, fill lights that From Software would use to, like, denote, oh, here's a chest, oh, here's a doorway. I haven't removed a lot of those. Some of them I've recolored to be more of a neutral look instead of, like, blue, right? Sometimes I'll make them, like, you know, bright gray or white, or depends. Some levels I've kept them blue, like Irithyll. So I don't know, it's a little bit more filled out. It still has a little bit more personality than some of my other mods where I've removed too many of those, I think. So let's go check out the High Wall of Lothric real quick. And get a look at that. Another issue I fixed with my prior DS3 modding efforts is DS3 has a strange behavior with the baked shadows, and even after removing them, where if your player is standing in a certain spot where the game thinks there should be a shadow already, the player's shadow will disappear, and you'll be running around without a shadow. I've mostly fixed that by altering the actual, like, shadow X and Y coordinates, so that the only places that you should be casting a shadow, you are casting a shadow. So that's generally been fixed, but I'm really surprised by the material quality in DS3. Like, after reflectance map edits, which I carried over from previous mod efforts, I had already done that for the map, and then the light map edits, the dynamic shadows, all of that. I feel like you get really, really pretty good material quality here. I think the High Wall of Lothric is a great example of that. The dynamic shadow, like, coordinates, or not coordinates, but the config configuration for the dynamic shadows actually were ported from my Bloodborne mod. Man, I am rusty at DS3. But they were ported from my Bloodborne mod, and they control the different shadow cascades and the distance and the blurring, because I had already set that up for Bloodborne really well. And because DS3 and Bloodborne share like 95% of their rendering makeup generally. So it's very easy to cross that over, port that over, but I'm super happy with the indirect illumination, material quality, the shadows. Like, I think this is as good as I personally can make DS3 look before lighting engine. But this is, I think, the best I've been able to make DS3 without lighting engine. Ooh, ooh. As you can see, this weapon I am somewhat new to. Let's swap over to my other weapon. I had my Irithyll Straight sort of upgraded, because I love the frost proc on it. So good. Brother, please. Okay, I got fucking like Joe Montana over here. I don't know why I went with Joe Montana, really old example, but I did. Let's hop down here. Yeah, there's been... I probably could have taken my prior DS3 mod efforts and altered them to my liking, but I found it to be a lot more effective to just start fresh and just do all the mod work again, because I am just simply better than I used to be at modding. And that's really down to modding Bloodborne, right? Put a lot of work into Bloodborne. So once again, the dynamic shadow benefit here and the removal of light maps, well, not removal of light maps, but the editing of said light maps. You can see now we get to have the sun realistically reach into this room. There's no difference there. Ooh, ow. Although I do see a difference where it is actually not switching correctly between the areas with how the players live. No shot, you got me on that. Alright, here we are in Undead Settlement. Let's clear out some of these enemies so we can make it to the bonfire. Ooh, doggos. Wait. Oh, shit. Ooh, oh, you son of a bitch. Joke's on you. Yeah, you can see the blue point light is still on this lever, which of course was FromSoft's way of being like, hey, hit this lever. But like, look at this shot. Come on. I even got the light shafts coming through. I figured out the light shaft param, mostly. I still can't figure out why I got it disabled somehow on the untended graves, but it's actually nice to be able to understand how the light shaft param works. It's also easier to enable in DS3 than it is in Bloodborne. But once again, dynamic shadows on everything. I think they look really good, to be honest. Really stable, decently high quality, blurred enough to, I think, look natural, you know? What's up, big dog? Got him. So far, the alternate color grades, which for those uninitiated who haven't seen the recent Bloodborne videos, for Bloodborne they had like 2 to 3 alternate color grades that FromSoft had made for a lot of the areas. And you can easily switch to those in the G params. You can just set it to a different ID, right? Which I've done. And in Bloodborne, there's been a really like awesome alternate color grades. Thus far in DS3, there's been minor changes of like, oh, one has a little bit more saturation, or you know, it hasn't been much, but I have been going through each one and picking the color grade that I like most, which currently it's like 50-50 on if I just keep the original one. And then sometimes I've switched to slightly different. But I'm pretty happy with how the game looks, without any lighting engine yet. I feel proud of as far as I've gotten, I think. Which, of course, in the comments you can tell me, does this just look like dog shit? And I'm like, I don't think it does. I think this looks pretty good. Now, this isn't to say that I think DS3 like looks bad by default. No, I think it looks pretty good, but I think these reflectives map changes have helped a lot. Of course, light shafts. I think I went a little too hard in the yard here. But the diffused and specular level changes. I think one of the biggest things for this mod is FromSoft like to use a lot of like secondary lights, world lights, that they would use like specular and diffuse values for all different types of like worldwide lights, and so you had a lot of just light coming from every which way. And so part of my mod is sort of like simplifying that down to like the light that is necessary. Like here you can see, let me kill this guy real quick. Gotcha. Of course, these light shafts are fake ones. I mean, they're all fake, but this one's actually hand-placed, like light shaft effect. But I think it actually looks really good. You can see it doesn't match up with the sun direction, really, which is now the dynamic light that's coming through and actually being affected by this cage here, which is really the benefit of dynamic lighting, right? The other benefit is the boss for this area. Well, one of them, the trees nuts, or I guess the boss of this area. The other one leads towards the other areas. Is you can now see trees nuts shadows all over the environment as you're fighting them, because not only is the player actually here's a good example of the thing I talked about earlier, where the player shadow disables. Oh my god, I forgot about that lady over there. So you can see the player shadow actually disappears here. I'll fix any of those issues, but that is due to where it thinks the shadows should be and where the shadows are. So that I can fix. Let's go kill lady up there. But yeah, that's the nice thing about changing to dynamic lighting for the player, is that you're actually doing it for the enemies as well. So good thing I upgraded this. Ooh. Yeah, there we go. There's Mallet. There's Mallet boy. I love their death sound. Is there a crystal guy up here? No, I took care of crystal guy. Okay. But yeah, I think I'm going to end the video there. I didn't show all the areas, but there's a link in the description where you can download the mod and try it out. It's not the full game, but you get up until a decent chunk in Irithyll. And so I think that's a good, like, proof of concept, right, of the mod, even as it is right now, with no lighting engine work. That's for the future, but just nice dynamic lighting changes, contrast, saturation, exposure, color grading, diffuse specular values, light map edits, reflectance map edits, like, and then more stuff in the planar reflections. That's mostly what I can think of right now, and some extra shadow casting things for point lights as well, but not as much focused on that. And then, of course, the reshade preset that you can see here, flipping it on and off doesn't do a ton. You can see it just enables the depth of field, which I think looks better than the default depth of field. And yeah, so try it out. Let me know what you think, and then I'll keep working on it. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.